Well, hello everyone. On the bench today, it's the Hallicrafters. This is the model SX-42, and it belongs to a local, and he purchased it a while back. The radio is supposed to have been recapped and everything, but resistors replaced. But you know, it does need some cosmetic repair. But there's two things that he's having a problem with. One is the S meter is intermittent, and the other issue is with the main tuning and band spread tuning. Now on the SX-42, it's a little different than most of your standard radios. You have a main tuning knob here that tunes the main tuning dial, and then here is your band spread, which tunes the band spread dial. And to do this, you got this little knob in the middle that you always turn to the right. When the cam is disengaged, you turn the knob on the back, and that turns your main tuning dial, as you can see. But when you flip the knob over to one click, it's supposed to disengage the main tuning and tune the band spread. But you can see what's going on here. You see both dials are turning. And also, if you look at the rear knob, you can see it's also turning too, and it's not supposed to. It's supposed to lock the back knob and the front knob turn free. When you flip it back over, then the rear knob should operate just the main tuning. And even though you can see the front knob turns, the band spread does not. And that's correct in a way. So what we got to do is get in here and find out what's going on with this mechanism. Why is it not working accurately? And see if we can fix it. Like I said, you know, this unit is in need of cosmetic repair. The front outer chassis is all scraped up, and the gray part of the lid is a lot of paint missing off of it. If you get in here and look at some of the lettering on the dials, you can see they are faded. The noise limiter on off is gone. So is the receive standby. There's nothing hardly left there. But you know, the rest of them don't look too bad. They're readable. But this would be a good candidate. And it should be easy to do because you got just a standard gray. So that wouldn't be too hard to duplicate. The main chassis is black and with a silver lid. So it wouldn't be too hard to strip this thing down and paint it back the original colors. This paint here, you can find it off the shelf in a rattle can if you wanted to do so, and it would match close enough, you know, just for cosmetic purposes. And you can see just how big this beast is. It is a big, heavy receiver. And it's deep and wide. It's a little bit wider than it is deep, but it's a good 20 some inches. So to get into this thing, we got to do is flip it over on its side first, like so. And there's 3 bolts here that needs to come out, which the middle one's missing. So we'll go ahead and see if we can pop these out. If you're going to do it on the side like this, you want to take these out first before you take the front ones out. Now there's 8 screws on the front, but you only need to take out these 4 big ones. And again, no, I'm not using no power driver. I never do on vintage equipment, because I like to be in control. Yeah, it's scratched up, it's got some issues, but no need of damaging it further, especially with a power tool. Okay, so now all the case will just, the chassis will slide right on out of the case, so I'll do that off cam. We're looking here at the top side, and you can see it's pretty dusty in there. It needs a bit of cleaning. A little rust on the screws to the transformer. See a big old rust spot up here in the front. It's kind of hard to see. There it is. It's not too awful bad. It should clean up pretty good. The back side looks real good. You see the Hallicrafters decal is still in place. See some dust bunnies underneath the hood. Needs to be cleaned up, but it doesn't really look too awful bad. Let's take a look at the bottom side. So yes, I can verify it has been recapped. As you can see, all these polyester tubular caps has been installed. It looks like about every cap has been changed. I don't see none that hasn't been, other than the molded mica square domino caps are still in place, but usually in this type of circuit they don't go bad. The electrolytic can capacitor is still sitting behind here, and there's no wires on it. So all the electrolytics has been replaced, and you can see 2 of the main filter caps are sitting down here, and there's 1 other blue electrolytic sitting over here. And if you also look, there's a lot of new resistors has been installed. I mean, everywhere I look there are new resistors in the circuit, so someone did take the time to go through and check the receivers, and this is probably why the receiver works as good as it does. Like I say, it just does need some cosmetic work. And one thing I do see, I'm looking at the back side of these wafer switches, and it doesn't look like they've ever been really properly cleaned. Somebody might have just sprayed them, but they didn't take the time to clean them and get the black tarnish off of them. Now you should be able to see what I mean here. You can see the contacts are just completely black. So yeah, someone didn't take the time to properly clean those, which we'll have to do that. And make sure all the switches are working correctly. So looking here at our band spread and tuning knob, I can see that the main tuning dial is up tight against the band spread. So that's probably why when you turn one, it turns the other. And even by engaging it, so it has some free play right here without turning it. When you turn further, it starts turning the whole thing. So we'll look on through here and see what else we see. You can also see the gap in the back here. Let me get a more straight on view. Yeah, you can see how far the indicator is from the front face. So that's telling me, yeah, someone's got it pushed too far out. So looking on through here on the rest of it, I can see that there's been a bunch of washers installed in this area. We can see our brake mechanism, and this engages it when you turn this little center knob. See, that releases it, and what that does, that releases the main tuning knob and locked the band spread. So here's a little bit better angle. You can see that the band spread is locked and the main tuning is unlocked. And when I rotate it, you can see the band spread stays still where it's supposed to turn. You can see the gearing here for it. So when I unlock it and lock the other one, you can see the main tuning is still turning and the band spread is slipping. Also notice the rust that's on this pivot point here. It's kind of heavy. I don't know if somebody's put something on there that was to lubricate or what, but it sure has rusted it pretty bad. Okay, I'm going to start by dismantling these front knobs so we can get in here and see what's going on. Now this lock knob, like I say, you always turn it clockwise. When you turn it counterclockwise, it should screw off. And another thing, you will find a lot of these rigs on the market that is missing this knob, or this shaft is broke off. So if you look, you don't see a set screw around the perimeter of this knob. So here on the side is a hole in this plastic knob, and you should be able to rotate it and find the set screw. For this knob. Okay guys, so looking at this thing, I think all the issues with the gear drive with the band spread. The reason why everything was turning regardless of which knob you turn it was that these two knobs here was jammed together tight, and I know it felt real, you know, stiff tuning it. So lined up this hole and I turned this knob. There's a set screw here and there's a set screw here. Now those are small Phillips set screws. And I kept poking in there and couldn't get my Allen wrench to fit, and I finally got the magnifying light in there. I could tell it was a small Phillips screw. So I loosened those up and I backed this off a little bit. I am now able to turn the outer knob, and it does turn the band spread. And by turning the big knob, the band spread knob doesn't turn as much. It does try to catch a little bit, but the needle's not turning now because the brake is engaged. Now if I turn, I got it completely locked, and that won't turn it at all, which is the way it's supposed to do. But again, let me turn the band spread back on. We still have another problem. Alright, let me see if I can get you zoomed in here so you can see more of what's going on. If I kick this wire harness over, you can see the band spread brake drum, and you can see the gear, and here is a locking collar. So when you turn that, you can see everything is turning. But if you keep noticing, you'll notice this little gear here will start slipping. And there it's slipping. It's not turning it. And it won't turn it back the other way. There it goes. And the issue with that is, unlike the main tuning brake drum, the collar is mounted directly to it, because you have a mechanical stop here that when you get to the edge goes down and locks on a pin to keep it, you know, from turning any further. The band spread relies on that slip joint in here, and it looks to me like that the diagram shows a little small spring washer in between the brake drum and this collar, and from looking at it I can tell that that spring washer has given up its life. It's either wore out or gone completely flat, so there's no pressure up against this. And this main, you know, the main reason for that is that when you get to the band edge, that it'll just start slipping and won't keep trying to turn everything. Now, the bad thing is we'll probably never find an original spring washer to go back in there. And if we do, to replace it, all this front panel, everything has to come out just to get these shafts out. If you could get the cam mechanism shaft out, which is going to go out that way, you know, all this other stuff back here is in the way, so it won't go all the way out. So you still got to disassemble everything. And to take care of these rusted brake arms, I may have to tear it apart anyway. So now I got to make a decision, you know, what do we want to do? We can go in here and epoxy this gear to this collar, and that would stop the slippage. The only thing is, you would have to be real careful when you got to the beginning and the ending of the travel, because you could damage something if you try to rotate the knob too far. Not unless you can put some kind of stop in it somewhere. Okay guys, got the faceplate off. That wasn't too hard of a task. And with the faceplate off and all the knobs off, and there's no weight on this shaft, this control works almost flawlessly now. I'm able to tune the band spread without it slipping or having any problems. So just the weight of the knobs sitting on this is also causing that to slip. That shows you just how bad that little spring washer is. So my thought process now is that I need to take this unit apart, take this shaft apart, and give it a good cleaning. See if I can find another spring washer and put in it. I guess we'll start by removing this upper panel. I don't think this unit will be too hard to take apart. It looks like it'll come out. The whole dial section, both the main tuning and band spread, looks like it'll come out. all in one piece just by disconnecting a few brackets. And that's what my goal is this morning. I just got back in the shop and it's very, very cold this morning. That's out of the way. So as I'm looking at this, you can see this whole bracket on the front holds both of the tuning dials, the main and the advanced spread, and all this is tied onto one double stacked plate, and it protrudes through the bottom, and everything on the bottom is connected to this. So I think I can loosen up these two couplers, come in here and remove the bolts out of this bottom bracket and the bolts from the other side, and I believe I can take this whole unit out in one piece. We'll have to remove the dial lamps. And then I can start disassembling all this stuff. Well, as you can see, I had the whole dial mechanism out. Had to remove these 5 bolts, and there's 2 couplers on each of the gear drives that goes to the variable capacitors. Couldn't get this end loose. There's one of the set screws, the side of it is broken off, so I'm going to have to get that out and replace that. But now at least we can get in here to this main drive and tear all this apart and try to rebuild it. Now's a good time to go ahead and clean. We need to take these dogs off and clean the rust off of them and stop that. Look at making some new brake shoes to go on the end of the dogs so that it will work properly. But that was quite a bit of a task. What we'll start by doing is removing this spring off the back of the unit. This holds the dogs together, and that's simply just grabbing the spring on one end with a pick and taking it loose off the other end. There we go. Now on the very front right here is a little C-clip, and it's small. I have it out. And you see the locking shaft. We'll pull right out. We'll remove the 2 screws on each side. Sometimes you got to use a little bigger persuader. You can see the brake shoes are completely burnt all the way through. and there's rust all over the end of it. And it looks like somebody's put something in here that's caused that rusting effect. If I can get the other one off. This back screw is right behind that pivot point. Makes it a little difficult. And probably why it's not as tight as the other ones are. Same thing on this one, you can see all that rust around it. And there's hardly no brake shoe left at all on this. And it's real stiff too, and that's due to that rusting. Okay, at this point we can see part of the problem that's going on here. If I grab the band spread shaft, you see that? Moving back and forth. So when it's all the way back, this collar here is not up against the other wheel, so this cannot push and hold this tight. Now, even though I know the spring washer is probably flattened out pretty bad, and you can see that this gear is riding right on the edge of the main gear down here, and it should be over here. And it looks like this keeper is not in the correct place. There. Look at that. This keeper here, somebody has taken it off and did not push it into the groove. They just had it on the edge of the shaft, right on the side of the C-clip groove. Alright, let's pull this down a little further. Now, when you take this collar off and you take this gear off, this other gear down here, let me see if I can focus on that a little bit better. This is a two-piece gear with a spring in it, so that when it's put together, it takes the backlash out. There's a spring in the two gears, so be careful, that spring will fall out when you pull this gear off. Okay, I got the lock collar off, and there's the spring washer, and like I said, it's pretty much flattened out, but if you notice it, you can see it glistening. Someone has coated this thing in a lot of oil, and you don't need a lot of oil on this. And the idea of it, it's a friction fit, so by oiling it, you're taking that friction out of it. As you can see, this right here is where it fits up against. That spring washer goes between the collar and this main gear, this brake drum, and it is just coated with some kind of greasy oil, and all that's got to be cleaned. Okay guys, so here's my thoughts on this. Tore everything down, inspected it, put it back together, and here's my conclusion. The thing is just wore out. You got to remember, this thing was made somewhere around 45, 46, and it's been used quite a bit. And the tolerances are no longer there. Now, if I had a good lathe and a milling machine instead of the older stuff I had, because this would be a little more precision, I would just go out and make new shafts and bushings and everything I needed to put back in this. But I don't have that equipment to do it. It would be nice, but that's not going to happen no time soon. Maybe in the future. So this little spring washer is supposed to hold tension on this, and when you get to the end of the band, it's supposed to start slipping and turning, you know, so it doesn't keep turning the capacitor or forcing the capacitor if it was made solid. Same thing, you know, when you go to the other end. And right now you will see it is turning with no problem, and I'm going to show you why that is, and then I'm going to explain some other things to you. Now it's very hard to see, but I came on the back side of this collar and drilled a very tiny hole all the way through and into the brake disc. I then cut a resistor lead and ran through it and bent it up on both sides. Now this is direct drive, so it doesn't slip anymore. Now, being resistor leads, if it gets in a bind, it will shear it. It can break it right off because that's very thin and soft material, and that's what we want. But however, let me zoom out and show you a little something. I was thinking about, you know, I can go onto the coupling collar and put a stop like they have up on the upper side so it doesn't travel too far. But when you get to the edge now, all the main gears down here is stopped, and you're slipping on the dial cord. Same thing when you go back to the other side. See, I can keep turning and we still have slippage when it gets to the end of its travel. So it is not going to affect the capacitor whatsoever. Now the main dial has a stop on it. Okay, so here's what's going on here. You see I drilled this little small hole in here, and it goes all the way through into both gears, well, the collar and the gear, and I slid this piece of resistor lead in, cut it off, and bent it over on both sides. Again, you know, this is soft enough material. If anything happens, it will shear, and should keep from breaking anything, although the dial cord is going to slip when it gets to the end anyway. Here's a shot of the other side where it comes through at. See, it comes through here and bends up. Now you can see where this thing has been riding, where the other gear has been riding. So all these teeth are in pretty bad shape. I've got to clean all this up too. So yeah, the whole thing just needs to be replaced with new parts, but you know, good luck finding that. It just hasn't no parts available. The brake gear is not in too bad a shape. You can see it still have the knurled marks on it, around it. Also the other gears the same way. Let's see if I can get a better view of that. There you can see it. Okay, the main dial has a mechanical stop, so when you're turning and it gets to the end of its travel, you'll see this lever fall down onto this dog there, and the same thing when it goes the other way. See it go up, now it's coming down, and it engages the dog. This one is direct drive, so it has a hard mechanical stop in it. Now we can add a mechanical stop, that ain't no problem. The capacitors, I noticed, do have mechanical stops on them, so they can't go just so far anyway. So no damage should occur. And I think that's the best fix for this, since everything is so worn out the way it is. Now we can go ahead and clean and lubricate all this stuff. And that's 2 dowel cords. There's one here for the main. See if I can get that straight. And then there's one here that goes from the band spread down here to the bottom to turn the band spread capacitor. Now I need to replace both of these dowel cords because I am seeing fraying on it. So you know, that's not going to affect the way the brake works. When you engage the band spread and you turn the band spread, the only thing it is, the brake comes off of the band spread gear and engages the main tuning dial, and that's just to keep it slipping. You got to remember, this shaft goes all the way through this mechanism, so just friction turning this could cause the other dial to rotate, and the brake just holds it from turning. Same thing when you disengage it, it releases the main tuning brake and captures the band spread brake. Now when you disengage the band spread, it locks the band spread in place and allows the main tuning dial to turn. But you can see just the friction of the shaft, because all this is running inside of it, still wants to turn. So the brake is going to engage this and hold it and keep it from turning. So there should be no problems with the way this thing is set up now. I just need to replace those brake shoes. It doesn't seem to be any problem turning the band spread. It's not turning the outer shell, which is the main tuning. But when you turn the main tuning, you can see the band spread does engage some. So the brake will hold that still. I've already cleaned up the whole assembly here, and went in and cleaned up these brake discs or brake arms. And what I've used here is just some rough vinyl, and I cut out the pad and glued it with 401 Loctite. And I've got both of them cleaned up and new pads glued to them, and they're a little bit rough on this side, which is good. After the glue is set, I'll come back and trim the excess off, and these can be reinstalled. I went ahead and pulled the dial string off of the band spread tuning, and yeah, it's in bad shape, and I'm able to just unloop it from the end of the spring. Both ends go to one side of the spring anyway, so all I got to do is just cut a new piece tight and get it the same length and stick it right back on. No problems. I have the main and band spread mechanism now rebuilt and ready to go back in the unit. I did have to shorten the spring a little bit by bending it and cutting off some and putting it back on because it had stretched over the years. But now the mechanism works like it should. Engage the band spread, and now the band spread will work like it was designed to. So you can see I had the new brake shoes on, made from that vinyl, and that is gripping the main dial real good when you engage the band spread. I cannot turn it with my fingers until I disengage it. And also we were worried about a stop. There is a stop already on the band spread dial. It is located right here on this pulley. So when the band spread gets to the edge, it hits this hard stop and cannot turn any further, thus not damaging the capacitor. Now that that's you know, taken care of. It's a good time now to get in here and clean anything and lubricate any of the shafts up here, clean up on the top chassis since the dial mechanism is out of the way. Okay, now that we got the band spread main tuning dial straightened out, we want to check out this meter. And to get this meter out, I haven't wired it back in yet. But if we look down in here, you can see we simply just loosen this screw, this collar come off, and we can slide the meter out. And I think we already know what's wrong with the meter now. By turning the radio on its edge, you can see this arm has came up and the meter has dropped down below the black. So this looks like this meter mechanism, looks like maybe the screws have come out of it. So we'll go ahead and pull it out and check it out and see what we can find. Okay, the meter's out, and around the perimeter towards the back there's some little screws that's got to be removed. We'll get those out. Only 3 of them. Now this should be able to pour right out. Okay, just like I said, the other screw fell out. And the screw is laying in the bottom here. And there it is. What this has on it is 2 stops for the needle to keep it from going too far either way, and that's what's causing the meter to bind up. Okay, so to fix this, we should be able to push this back down. Now the needle's free. Tiny little screws. Okay. Now what I do is put the meter back in the case and reinstall it. I think we'll be okay on that. Alright guys, the SX42 is back together. Let's put the 15 and see if I just wanted to look at the band, see how far they're off. I've got the signal generator set on 1 megahertz. We're going to flip up 1 band. I'm going to go to 3 megahertz. Let's go up 1 more band. And we should be at 10 megahertz. go up one more. Let's see what's the closest. 24 megahertz. Let's go up to the next band. Looks like 44. Spot on that band. Alright, we're going to go up here to 54 megahertz down at the low end of the band. Put the dial on 54. And it's peaking out between 54 and 55 megahertz. So it's about 0.5. It's about 500 off. Okay, I have a signal generator set for 1.5 megahertz. I'm on the very low band. I've got the dial set to 1.5. Set that on 1.5. And we're going to adjust A21 and get that centered directly onto it. I want to go ahead and adjust our 1.6 to 5 megahertz band, and it says to put it on 4.5 megahertz, and I'm not hearing nothing there. But if I turn it just slightly, I hear the band come in. So I'm going to set this back on 4.5 megahertz, and we're going to adjust A26 until we hear a signal. And I'm sorry for not showing you all the steps, but this thing, like I say, weighs close to 90 pounds, and moving it around is kind of tough. But I'll give you an idea here of where we're adjusting at. This is the main oscillator section. This is the one we adjusted for the first band. Now we're going to adjust this one to get the next band. And I don't have light on this side, so the camera is probably a little bit dark. Put you back on the voltmeter so you can see it come up. Now we're going to take it all the way down to 2 megahertz, or as the book says, 2 megacycles. And that's spot on 2.0. We'll put that in the generator, and we're going to rock it back and forth. And it is spot on, no adjustment necessary on that one. So I don't think I need to show y'all the whole process of just, I'm just making sure everything is on frequency. Well, it looks like about the only band that's active as far as any amateur stuff is 40 meter CW. Go back over to the set this back to 0.
Still in Zone 2 has some minor congestion on Glenwood Avenue. Zone 3 is running smooth. But Zone 4, on the other hand, has a bit
Now
of
the
stopping on
SX42 is receiving great. Okay, well there you go, guys. Our band spread and main tuning is now working like it's supposed to. All the bands are lined up and on frequency now, and I wish there was a little more activity on the band so we can go there and play around, but wrong time of the day for that. Anyway, I know this video wasn't too long, but I wanted to go ahead and get this thing together because the owner is itching to get it back, so we'll go ahead and get the case on it and get it back to him. And talked about doing a cosmetic restoration on this thing. I don't know how serious he wants to go into it. Will be a lot of work, you know, take this panel back off, take everything off, but sand it down, repaint it, put all new decals, lettering and stuff back on it, and then resand and paint the case. Won't be hard, it's just, you know, it's a little time consuming. And then get in here and polish up inside the chassis a little bit, repaint the transformer and the cover and different things. But we'll see what he wants to do. Maybe he wants to go you know, into that, or maybe not. We'll just have to see. Anyway, hope everyone has a great new year. It's coming up here shortly, so take care. Hope 2020 is prosperous for you, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye now.